Carnegie Hall, backstage, 1955. The air was thick with tension. Louis Armstrong stood quietly in the corner, 54 years old, a legend. But tonight he felt small. Billie Holiday had just said something that cut deeper than any criticism he'd ever received. "You're always grinning, Louis, always making them comfortable. When do you stop being their clown and start being a man?" The words hung in the air. Backstage crew had frozen. Band members looked away. Uncomfortable, embarrassed, waiting for Louis to respond, to defend himself, to fight back. But Louis just stood there, silent, looking at Billie. This woman he'd known for years, this brilliant, tortured artist, this voice that could break hearts with a single note. And all he said was, "I hear you, Lady Day." Then he walked away, left Billie standing there. Left everyone wondering, what just happened? Why didn't Louis defend himself? That night, the Carnegie Hall benefit concert continued as scheduled. Billie performed first, powerful, defiant, raw. The audience was electric, responding to every note, every emotion, every ounce of pain she poured into her music. Then came Louis's turn. He walked onto that stage. But something was different. The smile was gone. That famous Louis Armstrong smile, the one that had become his trademark, his shield, his survival tool, gone. He picked up his trumpet, looked out at the audience, and began to play. What emerged from that trumpet for the next 8 minutes was something nobody in that room had ever heard from Louis Armstrong. Pure, raw, unfiltered, emotion, not entertainment, not showmanship, not the grinning Louis they expected, just music. Just soul, just truth. When he finished, the room was silent, completely silent. Then the applause came. But this wasn't normal applause. This was something else. Recognition, understanding, witnessing. Backstage after the show, Billie Holiday was crying, waiting for Louis, and what she said to him changed everything. Before we explore this powerful story of misunderstanding, confrontation, and profound reconciliation, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. What happened between Louis Armstrong and Billie Holiday that night reveals something crucial about survival, resistance, and the many faces of dignity. To understand what happened at Carnegie Hall in 1955, we need to understand the world these two artists were navigating and the very different strategies they'd chosen for survival. Louis Daniel Armstrong was born in 1901, New Orleans, into a world that told black people they were less than human, that their music was noise, that their dreams didn't matter. Louis had spent 54 years proving that world wrong, not through anger, not through confrontation, but through excellence, through joy, through that smile, that famous, controversial, misunderstood smile. By 1955, Louis was one of the most famous musicians in the world, had performed for presidents, had toured internationally, had broken down barriers nobody thought could be broken, but his methods were under scrutiny, especially from younger black artists, who saw his accommodating style as weakness, as selling out, as being, in their words, an Uncle Tom. Billie Holiday was born in 1915, 14 years after Louis. Came of age in a different time, faced different pressures, made different choices. Billie didn't smile for white audiences, didn't make them comfortable, didn't soften her edges. She was raw, honest, defiant, and she paid for it. By 1955, Billie was struggling. Drug addiction, legal troubles, industry blacklisting. Her career was suffering, her health was declining, and she was angry. Angry at the world, angry at the system, and increasingly angry at artists like Louis who seemed to succeed by playing nice. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum. Young activists were demanding immediate change, no more patience, no more accommodation, no more waiting. And in that context, Louis Armstrong's grinning, entertaining persona looked like betrayal to some, like collaboration with oppression, like choosing personal success over collective dignity. Billie had been thinking this for years, watching Louis on television, seeing him joke with white hosts, seeing that smile, that perpetual, unfailing smile. It made her uncomfortable, made her question, made her angry. The information in this video is compiled from documented interviews, archival news, books, and historical reports. For narrative purposes, some parts are dramatized and may not represent 100% factual accuracy. We also use AI-assisted visuals and AI narration for cinematic reconstruction. The use of AI does not mean the story is fake, it is a storytelling tool. Our goal is to recreate the spirit of that era as faithfully as possible. Enjoy watching. The Carnegie Hall benefit concert had been planned for months, an all-star jazz lineup. Raising money for musicians in need, Louis and Billie were both scheduled to perform. Both had agreed immediately. Supporting fellow musicians was something they both believed in deeply. Rehearsals were scheduled for the afternoon of the concert. Carnegie Hall's backstage area, musicians arriving, setting up, running through their sets, making sure everything was ready. Louis arrived early, as always, professional, prepared, friendly, greeting everyone, that smile in place. Billie arrived later, looking tired, worn, the years of struggle showing on her face. But her voice was still powerful, still capable of breaking hearts. During the break between rehearsals, musicians gathered backstage, talking, laughing, sharing stories. Louis was in his element, telling jokes, making people laugh. Being Louis. Billie watched from across the room, and something inside her snapped. She walked over to Louis, interrupted a story he was telling. The room went quiet, everyone sensing tension. Billie looked at Louis. Really looked at him. Can we talk? Her voice was tight, controlled, but clearly emotional. Louis sensed trouble, but nodded. Sure, Lady Day. They stepped away from the group, into a quieter corner. Billie didn't waste time, didn't ease into it, just said what she'd been thinking. You're always grinning, Louis, always making them comfortable, the white folks, the ones who pay the bills, the ones who wouldn't let us eat in their restaurants or stay in their hotels, but you smile for them, entertain them, make them feel good about themselves. Louis listened, face neutral. Not defensive, not angry, just listening. Billie continued. Gaining momentum. When do you stop being their clown and start being a man? When do you stand up? Say no. Demand respect instead of begging for it with that smile? The words were harsh, meant to hurt, meant to provoke. Backstage crew members who overheard were shocked. Nobody talked to Louis Armstrong like that. Nobody questioned his dignity, his manhood, his choices. Louis stood there, taking it, letting Billie say what she needed to say. When she finally stopped, out of breath, out of words, Louis spoke, quietly, calmly. I hear you, Lady Day. That's all. No defense, no argument, no anger, just acknowledgement. Then he walked away. Left Billie standing there, left everyone confused. What kind of response was that? Have you ever been criticized for how you survive in an unjust world? How did you respond? Share your thoughts in the comments. Billie felt confused, had expected an argument, a defense, something. But Louis had just walked away. Had he been hurt? Was he angry? She couldn't tell. The rest of the rehearsal was tense. Louis and Billie avoiding each other, other musicians uncomfortable. Sensing something had happened, but not knowing what. When rehearsal ended, people scattered, getting dinner, resting before the show, preparing. Louis went to his dressing room, alone, sat down, looked at himself in the mirror, thought about Billie's words, about the accusation, the judgment. He'd heard it before from critics, from activists, from young musicians who thought his approach was outdated, cowardly, wrong. But hearing it from Billie hurt differently because Billie understood struggle, understood pain, understood what it meant to be a black artist in America. She should have understood him too, but she didn't. Couldn't see past the smile, couldn't see the strategy, couldn't see the survival. Louis thought about his life, about New Orleans, about poverty so crushing it still gave him nightmares, about learning early that anger got black boys killed, that defiance got black men lynched, that survival required intelligence, strategy, patience. The smile wasn't weakness, wasn't surrender, was armor, was weapon, was tool, made white audiences comfortable enough to actually listen to his music, to give him platforms, to open doors, not just for him, but for every black musician who came after. Louis had opened those doors by smiling, by being non-threatening, by letting white people think they were in control while he quietly revolutionized music, changed culture, shifted perspectives. That smile had accomplished more than 1,000 angry confrontations ever could. But how could he explain that? How could he make Billie understand without sounding defensive, without sounding like he was making excuses? He couldn't. Not with words, but maybe with music. That night, the Carnegie Hall concert began at 8. The hall was packed, mixed audience, black and white, jazz lovers, supporters of the cause, people who'd paid good money to see legends perform. The first acts went well, good music, good energy, good cause. Then Billie took the stage, and something shifted. Billie performed like she had something to prove, like she was making a statement. Her voice was powerful, raw, uncompromising. She sang about pain, about injustice, about surviving when the world wanted you dead. The audience felt every word, every note, every ounce of emotion. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. Billie had given them something real, something true, something that couldn't be faked or softened. Then came the announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Louis Armstrong." The audience erupted. Louis was beloved, expected, anticipated. They knew what they were getting. The smile, the personality, the showmanship. Louis walked onto the stage, and immediately people noticed something different. No smile. Louis Armstrong walked out without smiling. It was like seeing the sun without light. Wrong, unsettling, unexpected. Louis picked up his trumpet, looked out at the audience. Still no smile, no greeting, no joke, no warmth. Just stood there, holding his trumpet. Then he began to play. The song was St. James' Infirmary Blues, a funeral song, a death song, a song about loss and grief and the end of things. Louis had played it hundreds of times, usually with his characteristic flair, his personality, his entertainment value. But tonight was different. Tonight, Louis played it like a prayer, like a confession, like he was pouring his entire soul into the trumpet. No smiling, no performing, no entertaining, just music, pure, raw, unfiltered music. The notes that came from that trumpet were unlike anything the audience had heard from Louis Armstrong, dark, melancholic, honest, stripped of all showmanship, all the tricks, all the audience-pleasing flourishes, just the truth, just the pain, just the survival. Louis played for 8 minutes, never stopped, never spoke, never smiled. Just played. The audience sat in complete silence, mesmerized, unable to move, unable to look away. This wasn't the Louis they knew. This was something else, something deeper, something real. Backstage, Billie Holiday was listening, had planned to leave after her performance, but something made her stay, made her listen. As Louis played, something shifted inside her. She heard it, finally heard it, what Louis had been saying all along. Without words, the trumpet was speaking, telling the story Louis couldn't tell with his smile. The story of 54 years of survival, of navigating a world that wanted to destroy him, of finding ways to exist, to thrive, to matter, without getting killed. The smile wasn't surrender. The smile was survival, was strategy, was the price Louis paid to keep making music, to keep opening doors, to keep fighting in his own way. Billie felt tears running down her face, realized what she'd done, what she'd said, had called Louis a clown, had questioned his manhood, had accused him of betrayal, when really Louis had been fighting all along, just fighting differently. When the song ended, the silence in Carnegie Hall was absolute. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Then, slowly, people started standing, one by one, row by row, until the entire hall was on its feet, applauding. But not the usual applause. This was different, reverent, respectful, acknowledging they had witnessed something, something profound, something that went beyond entertainment. Louis stood there, still not smiling, just nodded, put down his trumpet, and walked off stage. Backstage, Billie was waiting, tears still streaming down her face. Louis saw her, stopped. They looked at each other. Billie spoke first, voice breaking. "I was wrong. I'm so sorry, Louis. I didn't understand." Louis's face softened. "Just slightly," Billie continued. "You weren't performing for them tonight. You were performing for us. For every black person who ever had to smile through pain, whoever had to hide their truth to survive, whoever had to choose between dignity and death." Louis finally smiled, but this time it was real, different from the public smile. This was genuine. "Warm, forgiving. Lady Day," he said gently. "I've been performing for us my whole life. You just needed to see it without the smile." Billie shook her head, overwhelmed. How do you do it? How do you carry that much pain and still smile? Louis thought for a moment, because the smile lets me keep playing, keep speaking, keep fighting. If I show them my anger, they'll silence me. If I show them my pain, they'll dismiss me. But if I smile, they let me in. And once I'm in, I can change things. Slowly, carefully, but changed them nonetheless. Billie understood, finally understood. You're not weaker than us. You're stronger. It takes more strength to smile through that than to show the anger. Louis shrugged. Different strategies for different times. Your way is important too, Billie. Your honesty. Your refusal to compromise. We need both. The smilers and the truth-tellers. The ones who get in the door and the ones who kick it down. They stood there. Two legends. Two different approaches, same struggle, same goal, same humanity. That night changed their relationship, changed how they saw each other, changed how they understood resistance. Billie never criticized Louis' smile again. In fact, she defended it. When younger artists called Louis an Uncle Tom, Billie would shut them down. You don't understand what he's doing, what he's accomplished. That smile opened doors for all of us. Don't you dare disrespect it. Louis, for his part, never held Billie's words against her, never mentioned the confrontation, never used it to make her feel bad. Just continued to support her, to respect her, to understand that her anger was as valid as his patience. In 1959, Billie Holiday passed away, 44 years old, worn down by life, by struggle, by all the battles she'd fought. Louis attended the funeral, spoke briefly about Billie's talent, her courage, her truth, and about what she'd taught him. That sometimes, he said, we need to take off the smile, need to show the pain, need to let people see what survival really costs. Billie reminded me of that. In 1971, Louis Armstrong passed away, 70 years old, having lived through more change than most people could imagine. Having helped create that change, with his music, with his presence, and yes, with his smile. At his funeral, someone brought up the Carnegie Hall night, the night Louis played without smiling, the night he showed everyone what was underneath. That was the real Louis, they said, Louis without the mask. But those who knew him better understood. Both were real, the smiling Louis and the serious Louis. The entertainer and the artist, the accommodator and the revolutionary, all of it was real. All of it was Louis. All of it was survival. All of it was resistance. Today, when we listen to recordings from that Carnegie Hall concert, we can hear it, the difference in Louis's performance, the rawness, the honesty, the soul. It sounds like truth, like pain, like 54 years of carrying weight nobody should have to carry. And doing it with grace, with dignity, with that smile. The story of Louis and Billie at Carnegie Hall reminds us that resistance takes many forms, that survival is not surrender, that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is smile through the pain, not because you don't feel it, but because you refuse to let it stop you. Thank you, Louis Armstrong, for the music, for the joy, for the smile, but also for showing us what was underneath, for teaching us that accommodation can be resistance, that patience can be power, that survival itself is victory. And thank you, Billie Holiday, for the honesty, for the anger, for the truth, for challenging Louis, for making him show us something we needed to see, for understanding when you were wrong and being brave enough to say it. Two legends, two approaches, one struggle, one night at Carnegie Hall, when a confrontation became understanding, when criticism became respect, when misunderstanding became profound recognition. The smile was never weakness, was always strength, was always strategy, was always Louis Armstrong finding a way to survive, thrive, and change the world one grin at a time forever.